Good morning, friend. Happy Friday. It is Friday and it is snowing. It's been snowing for the last 3 days. Nothing crazy sticking, but snow nonetheless. Last Friday, it was in the high 50s. I rolled out our seedlings using Josh's wheel method so they could get some fresh air and sunshine. And I actually sat outside and did a bunch of computer work outside in the sun because it was so beautiful. And today we are in here and we are going to be starting our tons of flowers and basically a lot of the things that need at least 8 weeks to be planted indoors before our last frost. So I just put in here some hot water with our compost. I'm gonna let this sit and I'm gonna share with you some updates that are happening in this grow room since last time we were in here. We've got some exciting things happening. I'm gonna get this mixed in. I got some fun mail in the mail, things that we're gonna be starting today, and some updates on the grow room itself. Okay, that feels great. So I'm just gonna let that sit there. I got my results back from the soil test, and they are worse than I anticipated. So last year, let me put up here, I'm gonna share with you what my soil tests were last year. You can see that the nitrogen was very, very low. And so I amended my beds with nitrogen. And I did that before I planted anything else out into the garden. When I planted a bunch of stuff out into the garden, I noticed that my plants were struggling. They were not getting enough nitrogen still. So I amended them throughout the growing season and they did just fine. This year, this is what my soil test looks like. And you can see my nitrogen levels are even lower. So that means I'm guessing that a lot of the plants used up what nitrogen was in the soil. So here's a comparison here between last year and this year. And this is where you can really see that the nitrogen levels are much, much lower now as opposed to what they were last year. And so with these nitrogen levels being the way they are, I am going to go ahead and amend the beds with what the soil company recommends I amend them with, which is blood meal right here. I've got, this is probably 40 pounds of blood meal, and I'll probably be using about half of this on all my beds. I bought this in bulk last year, and I used maybe about a quarter of it, and this year I'll probably use about half of this. It was much, much more affordable for me to buy this in bulk than it was for me to buy it in 5-pound boxes. You can buy it in 5-pound boxes. I went ahead and bought it in a 50-pound box, and it was like a quarter of the price per pound, which is perfect because I'm gonna be using a lot of it this year. Nitrogen is one of the most essential nutrients when it comes to fertilizers, and blood meal is just a really good organic option. And this is what is for my soil. So if you do a soil test on your own soil, the results might come back different and they will recommend something different for you. But for me, blood meal is my #1 best friend when it comes to what I need to be amending my beds with. Josh went ahead and got the wheels on this one shelf, and I showed you how easy it is to move these. Well, I was able to wheel this outside, like I said, and let these seedlings hang out outside last weekend. And he went ahead and put the wheels on both of these shelves so that I can wheel these in and out come time we need to harden these seedlings off. A bunch of the peppers have started to germinate, and we are seeing some life in this room, which is pretty exciting. Now, I went ahead and I've got these peppers really close to the light. When your seedlings germinate, it is best if you can get your seedlings pretty close to the light source if possible. And so this is really good. I also did put a fan in here so that when I'm not in here, I turn the fan on and I pretend like there's wind in here, and it helps just strengthen the seedlings. Right now I only have one fan, but I'm gonna be bringing another fan in here soon. And last but certainly not least, we are gonna be getting new flooring in the seed room next Friday. So I went ahead and I went with this option. These were the 3 options here. They're just a vinyl, and I didn't choose this one because when you look at the planks, they're only 2 feet wide, and it looked really busy when you were looking at a whole flooring sample. We just went to our local home improvement store and purchased this and are gonna have it installed. And so this was just too busy. This one is a little too gray and cold, and I thought it would just cool the room down a little bit too much. I thought the gray floor is a little trendy, so I went with something just a little bit more traditional and neutral. The planks on this were 3.5 feet wide, so it was a little less busy, and I think it'll warm up the space just a little bit more, so that's why I went with this one. So sometime next week, Josh and I have to somehow figure out how to move this behemoth metal desk out of here. So you and I will try to figure out how we're gonna do this together with Josh's help. But for now, I need to start a ton of seeds because I'm not gonna have this shelf in here to be starting seeds on for the next week. So what I'm gonna start today, and I did have to spend some time inside going over my plan and figuring out what exactly I'm gonna start, what I should start, what I'm not gonna start. What I want to start is all my flowers that I've been cold stratifying, but they have only been in the refrigerator for 3 weeks now, and I really need them to be in there for at least a month. So I'm gonna go ahead and skip those flowers, and we're gonna start some floret flowers that we got in the mail. I ordered quite a few seeds from Floret, and when you bought your seeds, it came with this beautiful planting guide, just a ton of beautiful pictures and information on how to start seeds indoors, how to start seeds, direct sow them into the garden, and a bunch of basic flower growing tips. And then it had a bunch of growing tips just for each individual flower that she sells. So the ones that I got are 3 of her varieties of dahlias. I've never grown dahlias from tubers or from seeds, so this is gonna be fun. I got Shooting Star, Petite Florets, Bee's Choice, and then I got a ton of zinnias, and her zinnias are just absolutely incredibly beautiful. I think I'm only gonna plant her zinnias in my garden this year. I don't think I'm gonna plant any of the seeds I already own. I didn't buy any other zinnia seeds this year, and it's kind of hard to tell the difference when you look at the seed packets, but if you go on her website, you can really tell the difference between these 4 different varieties of zinnia. I'm not starting these today because it's a little too early to start zinnias. And then I got some celosia. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I got 2 different varieties. I've never grown this before, and this is kind of a filler flower. And I'll be using that in bouquets throughout the summer. So I think we can start the celosia, nope, not quite yet, 4 to 6 weeks before our last frost date. So the floret flowers, the only ones I'm gonna be starting today from her are her dahlias. So more traditionally, when you grow dahlias, you grow them from tubers, and they are a clone from the mother plant. So you know exactly what you're gonna get. Something a little interesting with growing dahlias from seed is you have no idea what you're gonna get because they cross-pollinate and they create all these really beautiful flowers. So if I like a particular flower, I can dig up the tubers, save the tubers, try to overwinter them, and then possibly grow them out the following year. And I will get the exact same flower because I'm taking the actual tubers and planting those as opposed to taking the seed. But that is a whole different learning curve. I just need to try to get these to start and grow from seed first before we can even start thinking about saving tubers and trying to overwinter tubers. I'm not gonna put these in my seed containers yet because in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'm gonna be planting these out. So I'm just gonna stick these up here, and we're gonna be starting these today. And then I went through my list of things that I can start at this point in the growing season. And we have a long, long list of things that we're going to start. The only things I'm not gonna start that I technically could start today are my tomatoes, because in the past, my tomatoes have started and grown so big indoors so quickly that they end up getting kind of hard to manage before I can put them out in the ground. So I'm gonna actually start those toward the later end so that they just don't get so overgrown. Same with my tomatillos. I find once I put them into the ground, whether I put, like a 4-inch plant into the ground or an 8-inch plant into the ground, they kind of catch up with each other, and it's a lot easier to manage a smaller plant inside for less time than for it to get kind of big and unruly. So we've got a lot of things, so I'm gonna just start filling my trays. I think because we are starting so many today, I was trying to decide if I was gonna do soil blocks or if I was gonna use my 6 cell trays or pots, and I think I'm gonna go ahead and use my 6 cell pots for at least the dahlias. So let's see. I think I'm gonna plant all the dahlia seeds that I got from her. So I'm not sure exactly how many trays that's gonna fill, but I'm just gonna go ahead and fill these. When I was looking at her directions on how to plant dahlias from seed, she used pots as opposed to soil blocks. So because she is the expert and I'm the student, I'm gonna go ahead and go with her recommendation. So we're gonna put them in pots. I bought 2 seed packs of the Shooting Star. So I think I'll be able to get 1 whole tray of Shooting Star, and then I'll be able to get half a tray of the Petite Florets and the Bee's Choice. So far this year, I have started all my seeds in soil blocks, and I think there are pros and cons to every type of seed starting, whether that's in a tray like this or using soil blocks. The one thing I love about trays like this is it's a lot faster. I can get going a lot quicker. Soil blocking takes time, and this just goes a whole lot quicker. And I was feeling a little overwhelmed this morning with all the things I need to get started and just some other things that I need to get done in my life. And I thought, you know what, instead of soil blocking today, which feels overwhelming to me, I'm just gonna go ahead and use these little trays, and we're gonna start our dahlias and some other things in these little cells. And I'm happy for them. I love these trays because once I'm done using them, I can actually throw these in my dishwasher versus the ones I've used in the past are very hard to clean, and these are really easy to clean. And so these are great. They're a great option. I've started quite a few things in my mini soil blocks this year, and that's because they're things that start out so itty bitty teeny tiny, like my eucalyptus and snapdragons, that they can withstand being in a mini soil block for quite some time versus a dahlia is gonna get big pretty quick. And so I wanna start it out in something a little bit bigger than a really small soil block. Now that I'm out here, I'm thinking, you know, I probably had it in me to make a bunch of soil blocks. So maybe with something else we start today, we will start those in soil blocks. Okay, that's 1 tray done. So that didn't take very long at all. Now I'm gonna get this next tray filled.
Just like when I make soil blocks, I like to fill my seeding cells with pre-moistened soil. Sometimes if soil is dry, when it first gets wet, it kind of is hydrophobic, meaning it kind of repels water. And so if you put dry soil into these seeding cells like this, and then you put your seed in and then you try to water, sometimes the water will just pool on the top and it doesn't moisten the soil all the way through. So I just pre-moistened this just like I was gonna make soil blocks, filled each cell, and I am taking my finger and trying to make sure that I fill each cell fully, but I do miss a couple. But that is the goal, to try to fill each cell fully without compacting the soil.
Now, one thing about these seed packets is they do not say how many seeds are in each packet. So I'm not sure how many cells I can fill with just 1 seed packet. So this here is the Shooting Star Dahlia. I'll put up a couple pictures here so you can kind of see how they show up different depending on the genetics that they get when they are bred and then the seeds are saved. So I'm just gonna count real quick so I can see how many are in here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 4, 36 give or take. 36 give or take. And what she recommends to do is I went ahead and I just followed her recommendations out of her book right here. Very straightforward. is to make a little hole. So I've just got this. This is actually, it's a little waterer for pollinators. And I'm just gonna make a little hole. So I have 72 cells here. So I'm only gonna be putting 1 seed per cell. These seeds were not cheap. They were definitely an investment. So I don't want to put 2 seeds in each one and then have to cull them later. I'm willing to sacrifice the space on the heat mat if one doesn't germinate in one of these cells. So now I'm going to put 1 seed in each hole. I think I'm just going to put 1 seed in each hole and then go back and fill them so I can see where I've already put one. These are pretty big seeds, so they're easy to see and easy to plant as opposed to like a snapdragon seed. So 1 seed packet exactly filled half of this tray. So now I'm going to go back and actually plant them and cover it with 1/4 inch of soil. Oop. That one I did not fill all the way. Neither did I fill that one. Uh-oh. Okay, I need to go get more soil. And then I dug out that seed right there to fill that. So that was 1 seed packet filled this half tray. So I've got another seed packet that's the exact same thing. And I'm going to see if I can fill the rest of this tray. I'm just checking each of my cells to make sure I actually filled them fully, and I did.
From what I understand, most people that start out their dahlia growing journey start out by planting tubers as opposed to seed. Well, I have never bought dahlia tubers and I don't have any dahlia tubers, and so I bought these seed and I am going to try to grow dahlias from seed. Now, these plants, once they grow, they will produce tubers, and dahlias can be perennials if you live in an area that doesn't get too cold where the ground freezes too hard. And so what you can do if you live somewhere where it's really cold in the winter is you can actually dig up your tubers at the end of the growing season and try to overwinter them and then plant them back out. Now that is a skill I do not have yet. First, I want to try to grow them and see if I can even get a flower to produce, and then we will see how well that journey goes. And if that goes well, then my goal will be to try to save some tubers to grow next year. But this is going to be a fun experiment.
First flat planted out today, and that is again the Shooting Star Dahlia from Floret Seed. And when I was rereading her directions on how to start seeds, she talked about putting vermiculite on top of her seedlings, and I have not been doing that. I completely spaced it when we started everything else out already, and I used to put a good amount of vermiculite, and then I would put cinnamon on top because that helps prevent algae growth, and it also helps prevent mold. And I have some algae and mold on some of my soil blocks over there. And so when I read that, I was like, oh yeah, of course. I need to be putting vermiculite on the top. So that's what I'm gonna do here. It also helps trap in moisture during germination, but it also helps kind of wick moisture. It's kind of this weird thing. It does kind of the same thing, and it helps reduce moisture, but also keep moisture. So I'm gonna put a good amount on here, and I need to label this tray. So this whole entire tray is the same variety, and again, it is Shooting Star Dahlia. I've got 2 trays here, so I don't need 2 trays. Set that over there. I'm gonna reuse my plastic wrap. I'm gonna have to get a couple more pieces because I still have a couple pieces that I've already used on my peppers. And we're gonna get this over top. So I'm gonna get this tray on the heat mat, which I already have plugged in right here. So now I think because I have 2 packets and one packet fit half a tray and the other packet fit half a tray, that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna go ahead put this in half. I'm gonna put on this side Petite Florette Dahlia. And on this side is gonna be Bee's Choice. The Petite Florette exactly filled these 6 cells again, so it's crazy how perfect this is working out. So now I'm gonna do Bee's Choice next. I think I may have said that backwards earlier. I have 6 more seeds in here of the Bee's Choice, so I'm going to plant those out. I didn't want to waste them. So I'm just gonna cover this tray with the vermiculite, get this watered in, then we'll move on to our next crop we're gonna start today. I think what I'm gonna do before I start planting anymore is I'm actually going to do some maintenance on what I already have. This is my tray that I started on February 13th. Today is March 1st, by the way. It's my Orange Wonder Snapdragons from rareseeds.com and my Black Prince Snapdragons from rareseeds.com. I had beautiful germination on this, but you can probably see right here, there's quite a bit of algae growth. And the reason the algae growth happens is, one, I probably am overwatering these. I'm kind of having a hard time with these mini soil blocks gauging how much water. Because they're so small, they dry out very quickly. So I have had a little bit of die off because I wasn't watering my pansies enough. So this is this tray right here on this side is my pansies, and you can see I don't have that great of germination, and some of them have actually died. And I think part of that is because I'm still trying to figure out how much water to give them. My petunias are here, and I'm starting to get some mold on these ones, and part of that is overwatering again, but also the light causes the algae growth. Under here is where I have my second round of petunias, and those just germinated, and I have, you can see how these black soil blocks are kind of green. It's because I have algae growth. So I can take this off now because I have over 50% germination on these soil blocks with my petunias. So I think what I'm gonna do is take some cinnamon, and I'm gonna sprinkle cinnamon on the top of these. I should have done this right when I planted them, but I kind of forgot about it. And this will help with the mold and the algae. You don't want to use your really expensive, nice cinnamon for this. And you want to bottom water. So I don't really want to water the tops of them anymore. I want to water around the soil blocks and let the soil blocks soak up the water from around them, not on the top, and that'll help prevent the algae growth. Smells really good. I am gonna top water one last time because I don't really want this cinnamon sitting on their leaves. And now that I've had germination on these, some of these needed light to germinate, and that's one of the reasons I kind of forgot, is I was not wanting to cover them with anything that would prevent them from germinating, because I would cover them up and they wouldn't get the light to germinate. Now I want to make cinnamon rolls or something for this weekend. So I'm just watering these on the top, just this one last time. From here on out, I'll bottom water just to get that cinnamon and vermiculite off the petals so that that's not inhibiting them from photosynthesis or anything like that. A little too aggressive there. A little bit easier on these snapdragons. These are just gonna go back under the grow lights, and I'm not gonna water these again. I probably put a little too much water on there trying to wash off the cinnamon from the leaves, but I'm not gonna water these until they dry out again. And I'm gonna get the 2 fans in here, and that's gonna help prevent the algae growth and the mold. I'm gonna go ahead and get the vermiculite on my peppers as well. I started on this one already. I've had this one bag. This is my 3rd garden season with this one bag. This was I'll probably use the whole bag this year, 8 liters. I got this on Amazon. I can link this down below. I might be weird, but I love the smell of soil and I love the smell of cinnamon. So it smells fantastic in here. So before I do anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and mark down what I've already started today. So today is March 1st. Like I said, I have started 32 Bee's Choice. Dahlias. 32 Petite Florette. And 72 Shooting Star Dahlias. Now we have a lot more we're gonna be starting here in just a minute. So now I'm gonna regroup, figure out if I'm gonna be using soil blocks or if I'm gonna be using my cells, and figuring out exactly which flowers I'm gonna be starting. I pulled a bunch of them earlier today, but I'm just gonna regroup, reread the seed packets, making sure I'm starting them at their correct time. I'm currently trying to figure out how many seeds I need to start of the next varieties that I've pulled. And I am kind of just mapping out my green stalks here. I have 6 of them now, and I want to kind of get an idea and just jot down what I want in each one, and that'll give me an idea of how many I need to start. I probably won't follow this exactly to the T, but when I did this earlier this year, let me show you. With my garden plan, these are my raised beds. It kind of just calmed my mind and made me just be able to keep moving forward and not feel stressed. And so I figured, hey, I might as well do that same thing with my green stalks.
My green stalks are my vertical gardens, and I've got a couple goals for them for this year. 1, I want them to be beautiful, and 2, I want them to function well for me. And so I am just sketching out my green stalks so I can count up how many openings I have, and that will give me the knowledge I need to know how many starts I need to start for them.
This is my plan as of right now, but it could change. 2 green stalks that are gonna be planted with just strawberries. So basically in 4 square feet, I will have 84 strawberry plants, which is the equivalent of 2 of my raised beds, is basically how many strawberries I can put in 2 square feet, as opposed to, because it's vertical as opposed to it being horizontal. So that's pretty exciting. I'm gonna have 1 that's gonna be completely herbs, and I'm gonna have that right next to my kitchen door so I can just harvest that really, really easily. 1 that's gonna be all petunias, 1 that's gonna be all nasturtiums, and 1 that is going to be a variety of flowers. So I feel better about that. So now I've got a better idea of what I'm going to need to start at each of these next items we're gonna be starting.
I already decided on this day what varieties I want to plant, but what I've not decided is how many of each variety I'm going to plant. So that's what I'm doing here is I'm just laying my seed packets out on the cells, and I kind of have a system here where I know that if I lay the seed packet one way, I'm going to fill 3 of the cells with that thing, or if I lay them a particular way, I'm going to fill 1 or 2 or whatever it might be. And I'm just kind of doing a rough layout so that I know how many of these trays I need to fill with soil. And again, I felt like I was making so many decisions on this day that soil blocking was not something that I wanted to do as well. And so I'm using these cells. And it's been so nice having the freedom to know how to make soil blocks, because I love soil blocking. I really, really do. But I also love not having to make soil blocks if I don't want to. And so I'm having a great time on this day using these cells, and they work fantastic. So I filled 3 trays full of soil, and I'm going to be planting all of these out with flowers and with a ton of herbs. Herbs are one of my absolute favorite things to grow in my garden. I believe that they are one of the best return on investments when it comes to the culinary side of gardening, because it can be pricey to buy fresh herbs at the grocery store. And it is one of my absolute favorite things to cook with. And especially if you're growing perennial herbs. Now, what I'm planting in here today are annual herbs, so I have to plant them every year. But a lot of the herbs that I have out in my garden right now are things that will come back year after year. And in most of the country, herbs are perennials. In some parts of the country where it gets super, super cold, they're not perennials because it just gets too cold and they can't survive. But in most of the country, we can grow rosemary and thyme and oregano, sage, and you only have to either purchase the plant once or start to plant from seed once, and then you can enjoy the harvest off it for years and years and years. And I just love growing herbs. So what I'm starting here are my annual herbs, and they're the herbs that I need to start every year. And one of the big ones that I'm starting this year indoors is basil. I did not grow enough basil last year, and I want to try to really grow a lot more basil this year, because freeze-dried basil tastes incredible, and I'm completely out. I ran out months and months ago. I used it so much that it didn't last very long. And so I want to grow a lot more basil this year. I still have pesto in my freezer from last year's garden, but I do not have any just plain basil. So you will see what basil I'm going to be starting. I've got quite a few different varieties that I start for different reasons, and I'll kind of go into that. But I'm also going to be transplanting all of my herbs from my main garden up onto my patio, because I want my herbs closer to my kitchen, because herbs are something that I usually harvest right when I'm going to be cooking with them. And so I want them as close to my kitchen as possible, so that just for convenience reasons. So one of my green stalks is going to be devoted to herbs, just for the pure reason is that I want it closer to my kitchen so I can go out there and harvest it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
I roughly laid out how I was going to plant these, and I just planted tarragon. I have never cooked or eaten tarragon that I know of. I'm sure I've probably had it at a restaurant or something like that before, but I'm really excited to grow it because to me it just sounds delicious in like chicken recipes, braised chicken recipes with cream sauce. I can already taste it even though I don't know if I've ever even had it before. So I was only gonna do 6 of those, but those seeds were really, really small. So I decided I'm gonna go ahead and do 2 of those. So because this tray is just gonna have so many different things in it, I am labeling each individual cell. That way I know what everything is. So I'm just grabbing a cell here, picking up a seed packet, and then going ahead and planting the seed packet. And I am reading the back of the seed packet just to see if it says anything in particular. Like the tarragon, they were very, very small seeds, and it said just barely cover. So I really didn't even hardly cover them with soil. I just kind of pushed them in and then I topped it with the vermiculite, and I'm going to use that. These are Status seeds, and these are a little bit larger. I have found that it helps if I use the toothpick and I just push the seed in the soil with the toothpick, and then I don't even really have to make a hole. And I'll go over what everything is as soon as I'm done planting it. These I'm going to cover just gently. Maybe I'll do 2 of the Apricot Beauty Status. These are from Johnny Seeds. I didn't sift my soil before I am using it. So if I find rocks, this is kind of a big rock, or sticks or something like that, then I go ahead and I just pull them out with my hand. And then I've got a little bit of water here over here. So if I dip my toothpick in water, then my seeds stick to my toothpick, and then I can transfer it into the seeding cell a little bit easier. Some of them I'm putting 2 seeds, some of them I'm putting 1. There's no particular rhyme or reason necessarily why I'm choosing to do 1 or 2. So I just planted the yellow drumstick. I've never grown these. I've bought these at the store to make arrangements with before. And I just had the thought, I don't know if these are cut and come again flowers. Okay, I finally found it. It took me a while after reading. So it is a perennial, meaning it'll come back year after year after year in zones 9 and above. I am not that. So it's going to be an annual for me. So I will plant it this year and it will be done. It does say though, if you pinch it, it will branch. So that leads me to believe that yes, it will continue to produce flowers even if you harvest it one time. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and maybe do 2 of these. I was only planning on doing 1, but I think I'm gonna do 2. I just remembered I've got 2 more flower seed packets. I have Feverfew and Scabiosa. Both of these are flowers that are good filler flowers. I will put a picture of what Scabiosa, this is Triple Berry Bix, Scabiosa, and Feverfew. I'll put a picture of the Scabiosa here so you could see. I just got these on Amazon because I wanted them to come really quickly. And these are a good filler flower for bouquets. I forgot to order these and I keep seeing people on Instagram recommend these are really good for cut flowers. And so I went ahead and I just ordered them on Amazon. So I'm gonna get some of these planted today as well. So let me just sit here and focus, get this all done, and then I'll bring it back and share with you everything I got done. I used all of my compost that I had started this morning, and I'm not gonna boil any more water. So I'm gonna start the Scabiosa and the Feverfew when I start my tomatoes, which will be sometime. This is what I was able to get done today. So you know, we got our shooting star tray, the whole tray, half of a tray of the Petite Florette, half the tray of the Bee's Choice. Those are all dahlias. And then I have from here over, this is Genevieve basil. Lemon basil is one of my favorite herbs. I don't need a ton of it. I need to preserve this. I'm not gonna preserve any lemon basil. I'd like to eat that fresh. So I started 3 trays of that. So we have 20 plants of the lemon basil. I have 20 plants of the Thai basil and 20 plants of the purple basil. This is more just for beauty more than flavor. Thai basil is definitely for flavor, but I'm not gonna preserve a ton of it, so I don't need as much of that. And then we have 12 vintage white straw flowers, 12 of the purple red straw flowers. These are absolutely stunning. And then we've got Forever Silver Status. This is a good dry flower, so is this. And we can braid them in the garlic braids if we're able to do that. So that's the goal for those. And then we've got our yellow drumstick, filler flower, Apricot Status. This is also a very good drying flower, so that's why I have 12 plants of that. We have 6 plants of stevia. I've never grown stevia before, so we're gonna give that a try. We have 12 plants of tarragon. Oh, actually, yeah, 12 plants of Russian tarragon. The other day, I don't think I showed you this, I did start 40 of the flat leaf parsley and 40 of the curly parsley, and I've got this covering this. Oh, it looks like this one is starting to grow a little root. You can see the seeds on top of these soil blocks because parsley needs light to germinate. And so I'm just gonna cover those back up because those are gonna take some more time to germinate. So what I'm gonna do now is go ahead and get all these seeds put away. I don't think I'm gonna need to get any of these seeds out again until next year, hopefully. I started enough. I know that some things I probably started way more than I need, and I know some things I probably did not start enough. But whatever I started too much of, I am just going to gift. And if I didn't start enough, well then I could either plant something I started too much of, or I could run to the greenhouse and pick up what I need to pick up if I didn't start enough, or just direct sow something in that place and plant something else. I did label this whole tray with the date, just the date, because I have these little sticks in each one. I need to go get some more plastic wrap to write on here, or not to write on, but to cover these up. We are getting pretty close to, I think we're probably at the halfway mark of all the things we're gonna be starting indoors. We are gonna be direct sowing a ton of stuff out into the garden. In about 3 weeks, we're gonna start direct sowing some flowers actually, and some veggies. So that's gonna be really fun. This next week, we need to move this out of here because we are going to be, I'm just cleaning up as I'm talking to you, getting the new flooring in here. But I wanted to try to get some of my flowers started before that because it's gonna be a lot harder to start things if I don't have somewhere to actually start them. I could start them on the floor, I guess. That wouldn't be that big of a deal. I'm really looking forward to getting some new flooring in here that's gonna be easier to clean up after. I need to write down in my book how many of each thing I've started. So far I have written down everything I have started and on what date, but not only what I have started, but the quantities I have started. So that's part of what is very time consuming for me when it comes to this, is just thinking through how many I should start. Should I start 2 little seedling blocks worth of straw flowers or 1? And by documenting it, I will know for next year, wow, you started way too many of X, Y, and Z, or you did not start enough of X, Y, and Z. So that's what I'm gonna do now, and then I'm gonna run inside and we are gonna have air fryer copycat Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches. If you saw earlier this week, I got an air fryer and I experimented with all these air fryer recipes. And our absolute favorite was the air fryer chicken sandwiches. And Josh requested that I make those again already. So if you want to see how I made those, I will pop that right here because that is what we're going to be having for dinner tonight. And I need to go inside. I've got my chicken already marinating, so it's gonna come together really quickly. So friend, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with me in the grow room. Things are growing, things are happening. Things are, we're dodging some curveballs. I've got a little bit of mold, I've got a little bit of algae, but we're gonna persevere. We saw that the garden beds need nitrogen, so we are going to correct that. We've got the information that we need to amend the soil. And so with that knowledge, we can adapt, overcome, and be more prepared for this coming growing season. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.